2020 being organized by the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, FICCI. The COVID-19 pandemic has ushered in many a paradigm shift in our lives. For instance, the shift towards online healthcare services, remote consulting, medicine delivery at our doorsteps, along with possibly setting the stage for home diagnostics, at least for the routine tests. Acting on these developments, FICCI and the Association of Diagnostics Manufacturers of India, ADMI, have organized deliberations on the IVD sector today. The session this evening aims to discuss the benefits and barriers of home-use diagnostics tests and devices in India. The session is called COVID-19, Can Home-Use Diagnostics Become the New Normal? My name is Veena Kohli, and I'm the president of ADMI and the CEO of Vanguard Diagnostics. Joining me today is Mr. Nitin Patel, Vice President ADMI and Managing Director, Recon Diagnostics. We feel extremely honored and privileged today to be moderating this distinguished panel composed of senior officials from the Government of India and leaders from the IVD industry. Home use tests, also called self-tests, are typically sold over the counter, and they allow users to test self-collected samples and interpret the results on their own without the help of trained healthcare professionals. Home use testing has come a long way since the first over-the-counter pregnancy tests that were launched more than 35 years ago. Today, home testing kits have evolved and their applications have become expanded significantly. There are a wide variety of tests available to assist with diagnosis and monitoring of diseases at home, ranging from blood glucose and fertility tests to tests required for the initial screening of HIV, cancer, hyperlipidemia, Alzheimer's disease, and more. For those who are interested in their ancestry, there are over-the-counter genetic testing kits available too. The global market size for home-use diagnostics products is estimated to be $13.5 billion US, holding 19% of the total market share and growing at a CAGR of 4%, with tests for diabetes mellitus topping the tally. These are, however, global statistics wherein the US market accounts for a major 55%, the European market a significant 35%, with the Japanese and the other markets accounting for the remaining 10% of the market share. The consumption of home-use diagnostics in India presently is minuscule and limited to pregnancy and blood glucose testing, with ovulation testing having gained some ground during the past 10 years. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed a sharp reduction in the number of patients seeking healthcare. Even known patients of chronic non-communicable diseases such as diabetes mellitus and thyroid disease omitted their recommended quarterly testing of GHbA1c and TSH levels in order to avoid coming in contact with an infected person or environment in the hospital, nursing home, or pathology laboratory. The pandemic uncovered the need for simple yet critical home-use diagnostics devices such as the pulse oximeter, which became a household tool quite like the age-old thermometer. An increasing demand for home-use tests has also been felt from elderly patients who are at risk of serious heart ailments but are unable to visit the hospitals regularly. Taking diagnostics to people's homes requires the test device to be reliable, easy to use and maintain, portable, wireless, inexpensive, and of course, safe. Therefore, the role of well-laid down regulatory requirements and adherence to stringent quality standards for home-use diagnostics devices cannot be underestimated. Our discussion today has gained even more relevance in the wake of US FDA approving the first ever home-use test for the detection of COVID-19 virus just last week on the 17th of November. The crucial questions in front of us today are, is the future of routine diagnostics tests at home? Are these tests as reliable as those conducted in a clinical laboratory? What does India's learning curve look like with respect to indigenization of such products and making them locally available at reasonable prices? And finally, what are the regulatory guidelines and standards required to ensure that these products are reliable, user-friendly, and safe? So we'll be looking to answer some of these questions in the company of what is undoubtedly a stellar panel. Our first guest today is Dr. Jatendra Sharma, Managing Director and Founder CEO, Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone, also popularly known as the MedTech Man of India. Welcome to the session, Dr. Sharma. And I want to ask you that despite an extremely busy calendar, you always find time to make a valuable contribution to the ongoing industry discussions. How you manage so much doesn't cease to amaze us. So could you please tell us a line about what drives you really?
Thank you for having me on the panel once again. I think what drives me to be on the panel like this is the selfless effort of decades by passionate individuals like those on the panel and many in the audience. Whatever we are today, wherever we are today, whichever destination we are going together, it's built on these decades of effort which some of you have put in. And I think our being present with all of you, our being jointly working with all of you is only a gratitude that we can give to the industry on which the efforts of which is being seen by the country today. So I must actually thank and appreciate all.
Well, that's very considerate of you, and we really appreciate your comments, Dr. Sharma. Welcome to the session once again. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Aseem Sahu, Deputy Drugs Controller, CDSEO North Zone. Mr. Sahu is responsible for all enforcement activities related to diagnostics, medical devices, pharma, and cosmetics. Welcome to the session, Mr. Sahu. And we'd like to know from you, Ms. Sahu, a little about the COVID situation in India from a regulatory perspective.
First of all, it's my pleasure to be a part of this panel and program. Especially thank you to FICCI for organizing this program. As far as regulation of the COVID-19 diagnostic kit is concerned, we are aware that before March 2020, when this case was not any confirmed case was there, we don't have the kit for this COVID-19 test kits. Thereafter, the government has initiated various steps, and first tech approval was given to such type of kits for easily available in the market. And as on date, seen the website of the CDSEO, we have approved more than 150 PCR kits and more than 120 rapid diagnostic kits, which is available in the market for diagnosis of these COVID-19 test kits. So these are the present regulatory situation, and the various steps also has been taken for development of this indigenously development of this COVID-19 kit in the country. And we have approved so far approximate more than 50 PCR kits and the rapid kits, which is indigenously developed by the manufacturers in the country. So we have now sufficient that kit available in the market for diagnosis of this COVID-19 test kits. And also in future, we will, whatever the new development is going, the regulatory approval also is being taken on the priority basis by the Government of India.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sahu. The diagnostics industry did indeed respond well to the challenge posed by the pandemic. Next up, I'm delighted to welcome Professor Ashrathan, Advisor, Pathkind Laboratories. Professor Ratan was conferred the APJ Abdul Kalam Award for Lifetime Contribution to Medical Sciences in 2018. Welcome to the session, sir. Dr. Ratan, while at college, you captained the university cricket and lawn tennis teams. Which sport do you follow more these days? You have to unmute yourself, sir. Unmute yourself. Yes.
So, yeah. Nowadays, of course, there's very little chance to play cricket. And of course, I put on about 40 kg since I used to play cricket or tennis. Most of the time, it is looking at COVID and seeing what needs to be done and trying to push them to do the right thing right. And so that's how it is at the moment.
Thank you very much, sir. Wishing you many more cricket matches after the pandemic is over. Ladies and gentlemen, next is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Rajesh Jha, Head of Marketing, E-Commerce and Customer Service at Roche Diabetes Care India. Welcome to the session, Rajesh.
Thanks a lot, Veena. Sorry.
You're a multidisciplinary marketing professional with rich experience in industries like diagnostics and medical devices, pharma, consumer health, FMCG, and foods. Please share with us which industry did you enjoy working in the most? And we want you to say diagnostics.
Of course, diagnostic is a big challenge and a very interesting field. And I am here as a professional in the company of a lot of entrepreneurs and bureaucrats. So it's good to be here, first of all, and looking forward to a lot of new insights during the deliberations. Yep.
Thank you very much, Rajesh, and a very warm welcome once again.
Thank you.
We are also delighted to be joined by Dr. Pradeep Dua. Dr. Dua is presently on deputation as a scientist at the Bureau of Indian Standards, BIS. He's playing an important role in developing Indian and international standards for medical devices and Ayush system at the BIS. Welcome to the session, Dr. Dua. And Dr. Dua, you're a qualified professional in the fields of yoga and naturopathy. Would you recommend yoga and naturopathy to us to stay healthy during these times of the pandemic?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for making me part of the panel. And truly speaking, seeing your vibrance and dynamism, I never thought that you are not doing yoga. So of course, if anybody wants to be as dynamic, as vibrant, and as multitasking as Madam Veena Kohli, I think yoga is the only prescription for all of us. And although this is a public forum, I would not hesitate to share that I got an email from Madam Veena at 2:30 a.m. and another email at 4:30. So I asked her next morning, when do you go to sleep? I don't know, probably you are busy doing yoga and meditation only. So, of course, in the present times of global trouble, these holistic systems are the key to, self-guided fitness. And one must try to practice to whatever extent and to whatever, time we can devote to this. Of course, this is the most non-controversial and the most effective and the most, cost-effective intervention that we can all follow universally.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dua. We're going to follow your advice for sure. And rounding off our lineup of exceptional panelists, I'm delighted to welcome a colleague from the industry, Dr. Ravi Mehrotra, founder and chairman of Sensor Core Medical Instrumentation Private Limited and an alumnus of the University of Michigan, USA and IIT Chennai. Welcome, Dr. Ravi. We are lucky to have you in India during the Diwali holidays that are still going on. So could you please enlighten us a little by sharing about your outlook on the US COVID crisis?
That's a long story, actually. We'll need the whole hour for that. I would say, okay, thanks for inviting me for this excellent panel. And as Dr. Dua had mentioned, I was also thinking, I was getting email like 4:30 in the morning, and I was thinking, is she working in the US time zone, actually? So that was the main thing. So the COVID situation in US is more of not following the basic principle, like even just wearing a mask. So half the US was wearing a mask, and rest half the US was not wearing the mask. So they did not follow the basic protocol. And that is the reason it has gone so big and so large. If you had followed the basic protocol from day one, I think things could have been much under control. But that is what my gist was. Not everyone followed. And I could see the US was divided on who should wear mask and who should not. And if that was unified message was given by the top leadership, this situation would not have arrived. That was my take.
Absolutely. We only have the mask till we have the drug and the vaccine.
Yes.
We must stick to that principle of wearing the mask. Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi, and welcome once again to the panel. And a very warm welcome to all our distinguished panelists once again. And we start off the discussion with yourself, Rajesh. What are the criteria that qualify a diagnostics test for home use? And what innovations are underway in this field, which will lead to new tests being added to the existing list?
Yeah, sure, Veena. Thanks a lot. I think more than me, there are a lot of esteemed panelists who are, more worthy of answering this question. But what I have understood from my experience in last 1 year is that this uh, tests have to be very accurate and simple to do, precise and give robust results, because reliability is always an issue whenever adaptation of POC devices is concerned. What we have seen in blood glucose monitor as well, and there is always a tussle or a balance which you have to maintain uh, between market access, affordability, and accuracy. Because if you make it very affordable, then accuracy sometimes goes for a toss. So, how you make it accurate yet affordable is a challenge which people we have to crack. Of course, regulatory clearances and simple to use, not causing harm if performed incorrectly. These are the areas which any diagnosis text for home has to comply with. But one most important in these days, what I see is important is connectedness to e-health systems, because more and more patient management record EMRs are becoming very popular among doctor community and in the healthcare. So if more and more these e-diagnostics can be capable of transmitting test results to a cloud-based systems, then that is the way of future. That is where the trend are. So that's I think these are the some of the important areas which any home use diagnostics have to take care of. In terms of trends, I will speak from my personal experience of our company, what kind of products we are launching. So, as I said, e-health connectedness is becoming a norm, and we, as a Roche, also are focusing a lot on that with the investment in AI and ML as well as IoT for better connectedness and personalization, because in future the boundaries between hardware and software are blurring. Customers want best combination of both. They don't want the result, but how to interpret those results, what kind of algorithms, what kind of trend charts can be made out of the results, and how you can facilitate the HCPs or doctors to take decisions in a right manner is what kind of solutions where industries are investing on. And of course, the other trend which has to come is interconnectivity, open systems. The way the digital area is showing the way, I think in diagnostics also, interconnectivity of other devices, other competition devices with the softwares is what we need to look at. And in terms of technology, I'm sure the other panelists have a very deeper knowledge of that. But what I could understand from our point of view, paper-based devices or attachments with smartphone cameras, because smartphone has become the ubiquitous tool with everybody. So if we can leverage that and come out with solutions which can be attached with smartphone, which keeps the costs low, I think that is where the trends are headed. Of course, in area of blood glucose, always there is a challenge how to take out blood. So the solutions which take out, which remove this requirement, for example, use of biosensors in CGMs, the continuous glucose monitoring devices have shown the way. And in future, I think as the technology becomes more and more sharp, I think we will see advent of sweat sensing patches, saliva sensors, breath sensors. Such kind of devices will be the order of the day in future. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rajesh. That was very useful and insightful. And we really agree that we have to get a test which doesn't require blood as a sample. Something non invasive, like you mentioned, sweat or some other body fluid would be very, very useful. And we look forward to that. Thank you, Rajesh. And next, I'd like to come to you, Dr. Ratan. Dr. Ratan, millions of people are now using home use diagnostics tests, and advances in technology will make this number grow even further. So, in your opinion, are home use tests as reliable as those conducted in a clinical laboratory?
Ratanji, you have to unmute.
You have to unmute yourself, sir.
Mostly not. See, in the laboratory, we have much better equipment which are calibrated every day, which are quality controlled every day, and calibrations are run regularly, and the volume is high. So as a consequence, the laboratory results will be much better. But home use can be useful provided we use it for screening or for monitoring, knowing that we should get results in plus or minus, and then triage and confirm whatever we get by a laboratory based test. It was normally, as you know, that in the laboratory, in any test, we have pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical. And when you look at where the error lies, in the laboratory, mostly it is pre-analytical that the error is. About 60 to 80% of errors occur in pre-analytical, that means sample collection. While in the point of care testing or home testing, doing the test itself causes most of the errors. The post-analytical errors are very few because the person who's doing the testing is taking the results, or the result is communicated very quickly. But it is the performance. So the accuracy and precision is compromised, but knowing that the results could be useful, especially suppose it is like blood glucose, if you have to monitor it very frequently, so home testing will be useful. Suppose it is for troponin, if a person has heart attack, then troponin at the point would be still very useful. Other tests, if a person has fever, then malaria tests are useful. So we should be careful about what test to use, and then it will be useful.
Very well said, sir. And we need to keep these points and caveats in mind to make the most of the home use tests and use them judiciously, like you said. Thank you. Next up is a question for Dr. Ravi. And here, like Rajesh mentioned, that they should be affordable. So how do we kind of balance the challenge of accuracy and affordability? So that's why we brought Dr. Ravi in, who's a manufacturer of home use diagnostics products in India. So Dr. Ravi, what according to you are the constraints and enablers in the development and manufacturing of home use tests in our country? You're a manufacturer of such tests presently.
So if you go back to the glucose is the most frequently used POCT, like after the pregnancy, the glucose is most frequently used. See, when the meter was 2000, the strip was like 30 rupees per strip. The adaptation of that glucose meter and strip was purely an urban phenomenon. Who could afford it, they could only get it, but it was not reaching the mass. For you, once the price of glucometer started to fall below 1000, and now we can get between 400 and 800 rupees. Now we see there's a huge adaptation of glucometer for the in-house testing. At the same time, the strip cost has come down from 30 rupees to single digit to maybe in the teens. And that is one of the reasons for exponential adoption of glucometer and strips across India. India being the diabetic capital, we should have had companies making this strip, at least 10 or 15 of them. Unfortunately, most of them are importers from foreign, and the key thing to bring the cost down is local manufacturing. Today, we can make the strip as low as 50 paisa in our factory. So I think local manufacturing and mass production is the only key to bring the cost down. So that is the what, and also the barrier, the affordability barrier has to be cracked. Let's say cholesterol is another example, which is also required, hemoglobin meters required, but all these meters are very expensive. Until you bring it to the point where everyone can afford by closing their eyes, I think that is where the mass adoption of these POC devices will happen, and that only can be achieved by local manufacturing. That's my intake.
That was truly insightful, Dr. Ravi, and some learnings there. And sticking to the subject of manufacturing in India, let's now bring in Dr. Jatendra Sharma. We have very little time with him. Dr. Sharma, the development and manufacturing of home use diagnostics devices requires specialized biosensor materials and advanced electronics. Do we already have such an infrastructure available at the AMTZ? And if not, do you envision the creation of a special cell for supporting all aspects of home use diagnostics at the AMTZ?
Thank you very much for that very relevant question. Thanks to Mr. Ravi for actually triggering the question. For the home use diagnostics and also for complex diagnostic instrumentation, what are the three things that we need for manufacturing besides the human resource, working capital, and place to manufacture? One, we need best of class quality control systems to validate the instruments, which means the electromagnetic interference capability, the biomaterial sensing capability, and the electrical safety capability. Now, AMTZ, obviously, as you know, has India's largest and one of world's largest EMIMC facility, which is like 40 gigahertz dual mast antenna. Indirectly meaning it can test almost everything in a machine, from a satellite to an MRI magnet. Now, we also have the biomaterial testing facility, the accelerated aging facility, and the facility for electrical safety. So the testing and validation component of instrumentation is something we have. The second component that we need for any miniaturized development is 3D printing. Because 3D printing can actually not only reduce cost but bring a perfection. I don't know if I can turn my screen, but the building next to me is world's largest 3D printing center. World's largest used to be in Boston with I think 39 3D printers until we set up one with 87 3D printers. So the world's largest is nowhere close, which means large number of circuitry and plastic metal integration, metal non-metal integration, alloy polycarbonate integration you can do using 3D printing. And 3D printing is the second vertical on which domestic manufacturing of high-end instrumentation rests upon. And the third vertical is sensors, microcontrollers, and printed circuit boards. So if you have a pipeline of PCBs, sensors, microcontrollers, you can actually engineer the brain behind the machine very easily. Now, there are many large institutions in the world, from Honeywells to many others, who actually are world leaders in sensors. One such world leader in sensors and other systems, electrical instrumentations, is Amphenol, and Amphenol has their base at AMTZ. We actually host the Amphenol sensor making facility for medical instrumentation and medical segments. So if you were to put microelectronics, in vitro diagnostics, home care devices in the center of a triangle, besides exactly what Mr. Ravi mentioned, Dr. Ratan mentioned, you need this testing capability on EMIMC, electrical safety, biomaterial, and accelerated aging that we have as a country at AMTZ. You need the 3D printing, which we have for the country at AMTZ. And you need the sensor development, circuitry, and microelectronics that we have at AMTZ. So we have actually the whole triangle. But what do we look up to? Because I have just 3 or 4 minutes. Let me get greedy and snatch those 120 seconds. You know, Veena-ji, when you started this session, you actually mentioned about pregnancy self-test kits. Now, if you look at the ICD-11, the International Classification of Diseases, we have 11,000 plus disease conditions. Ratan Sahab actually mentioned a large number of them. In this 11,000 disease spectrum, what are we able to diagnose today at home? We are able to diagnose temperature, which is not which a physiological, it's a biophysics, it's a physiological measurement. You can't actually call it diagnostics. We diagnose SpO2, which is again a physiological assessment. It's not a diagnostics. We do have self-test pregnancy and glucose. We don't do anything else. And therefore, we are generations behind what can be an ideal home care diagnostics. But if you look at pregnancy self-test kits or glucose, there are three distinct features as principle. And the moment we are able to embed these three principles on any diagnostics, it will fly as a home care. And these are not technological principles. The first principle is ability to self-prescribe. Now, pregnancy self-test kit is popular not just because industry can make it, because there is no barrier to prescribe it. It is self-prescription. Unless this principle is embedded into modern diagnostics of home care, you can't expect the same result as pregnancy self-test kits uptake in domestics.
Right.
The second principle is proxy confirmatory. We don't need to have real gold standards because households that we are talking, there is no gold. We are not actually talking of gold standard. We all know that glucose, the gold standard is glycosylated hemoglobin, HbA1c. But nobody is doing HbA1c at home. They are happy doing blood glucose measurement. They are happy doing random blood sugar. Nobody calls it inferior. Whereas if you see the remaining spectrum of diagnostics, if we are not gold standard, we are almost looked as inferior test, which is not true. The better need not become enemy of the good. and the third principle is it being cost effective or affordable. We all know that if it is HbA1c, it would be about 700 rupees. But if it is blood glucose, as Mr. Ravi said, even if you were to inbuild a cost of logistics and marketing and supply driven components, it would be at the most about 10 to 15 rupees per strip. And therefore, there is a drastic difference between what we think is gold standard like HbA1c and what we can reliably use at home. Now, if these three principles, which is it being prescription agnostic, it being near proxy accurate, and it being cost effective, can be brought into diagnostics, we have tons of variables that are coming out. Now, these variables are algorithmically interactable. They are interoperable. We have large number of saliva-based and sweat-based diagnostics that's coming out. We have large number of ocular-based diagnostics that coming out. That's just picking up on the camera the rate of blood flow in the optical veins, and they are able to we are able to diagnose certain things. I think we need to imbibe these three core principles into the diagnostics that we are looking forward to. Take advantage of the triangle, which is testing facilities, 3D printing, and sensors and microelectronics, and bring out what you call in your ideal way home care diagnostics. So sorry for the long comment, but over to you.
No, that was a very wonderful and comprehensive answer, Dr. Sharma. And now we realize that the golden triangle is not Delhi, Agra, Jaipur, but all at AMTZ. And we have, in fact, it's very encouraging to learn from you, Dr. Saab, that all that we require to really develop and manufacture home use diagnostics in the country, which is near accurate, which is reliable, which is affordable, is all available at the AMTZ. I think we must, from here, take a cue that we must organize for some such lecture by you to the industry so that everyone becomes aware of all that is available at the AMTZ. Even I wasn't aware of many things that you mentioned today. So it's very encouraging and very exciting to see that we're not very far away from indigenizing home use diagnostics.
We are not. In fact, we have, I think, the only campus in the world that has 165 clean rooms.
Oh, wow.
In one campus, just for diagnostic manufacturing. So we are looking at a scale which is unprecedented, and it is all thanks to people like you who have been part of this AMTZ development over last 2.5 years. But we are in a very, very formidable position today.
Yes, yes. Without a shade of doubt. Without a shade of doubt, I think the industry should leverage the AMTZ more than what we are doing at the moment, is the message that I think we take back to ADMI and other manufacturers in the country of diagnostics products.
And besides infrastructure, if there is any support, both financial and technical, that industry needs for achieving WHO pre-qualification in diagnostics, We at AMTZ are also the WHO pre-qualification support cell for IVDs. We would be happy to work with you and handhold with the industry colleagues.
Yeah, that's really a differentiator. And you launched it, the WHO PQ cell that you have at the AMTZ maybe 4 years back. So that was really precautious and would be very useful to the industry. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for building such a wonderful facility, which is the biggest in the world and the best in the world now. We feel very proud as Indians. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Regulation is a pertinent aspect of home use diagnostics devices, like Dr. Sharma mentioned and Dr. Ratan too. So to get some insight on that, we now bring in Mr. Aseem Sahu. Dr. Sahu, what is the regulatory framework being adopted in India for the approval of home use diagnostics tests and devices? And how many home use diagnostics tests have already been approved by the CDSEO thus far? Dr. Sahu, you have to unmute yourself, please. Yes. Yes.
Now it's okay?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So as far as regulation of the home use diagnostic kit is concerned, we have the comprehensive regulation on the medical device that is Medical Device Rule 2017 that we have published. So in that entire revision have been made, but there is no specific regulation for home use diagnostic kits. Based on the label claim of the products and the data generated by the firm, the approval is being granted by the authority under the provision of drugs and cosmetics, that Medical Device Rule 2017. So home use kits, we don't have that home use kit for the high risk diagnostic devices, but for low risk certain devices, so far the kit is approved, like pregnancy test kits, glucose test strips, some urinalysis kits, and also some kit that is available in the market and approved by the authority. But there is no specific regulation for home use diagnostic kits. Medical Device Rule 17 clearly mention what are the documents required for the high risk devices and low risk devices.
Okay, so
the applications are being, yeah, based on that application is being reviewed and the documents are satisfactory, then authority will consider that for the particular intended use of the kits. So this is the present regulation position as far as the Medical Device Rule 2017 is concerned, and only the low risk diagnostic kits so far we have approved for the home use, not for the high risk device diagnostic devices.
So the classification is going to play an important role.
Important role.
It's how CDSEO would give approvals to manufacturers and developers. Thank you very much for giving us that clarity, Ms. Sahu.
Thank you.
Closely related to regulations are standards. So next, I'd like to come to you, Dr. Dua. Dr. Dua, why is it important to have well-developed standards for home use diagnostics devices, especially with respect to a country like ours?
Well, thank you, Veena ji, for raising this very important question. In fact, we all know that Bureau of Indian Standards is the national standards body for India. And the tagline for BIS is Manikaha Path Pradarshakaha, means standards form the roadmap for consumer, roadmap for trade, roadmap for regulation, and whatnot. So what I think standards are important for assuring quality, safety, performance, reproducibility, efficacy, and interoperability sometimes. So standards per se are important for all consumer goods. And as we all know that more than 22,000 standards for different consumer goods have been formulated till date by the Bureau of Indian Standards. At the same time, standards are even more important when it comes to medical equipment and other such related equipment, because the human life is at stake. But still, here the device is being handled by those who are qualified in the field. But when it comes to home use diagnostics, the standards importance become even more paramount, because here the handler is not formally qualified in the system. of documenting, of reporting, of sampling, of storage, and of reporting the results. So, in view of the today's focus of discussion, that is home use diagnostics, I think it's of paramount importance to have standards developed so that we can assure the delivery of quality, safe, and effective product to our consumers. And I'm happy to share that Bureau of Indian Standards has already taken up this task at quite an aggressive level. And there are nearly three sectional committees in Bureau of Indian Standards which touch the domain of in vitro diagnostic related standards and home care use diagnostic standards in some way or the other. And we do have a core group also where several activities are being performed regarding formulation of standards for IVDs. And I'm happy to share this information. We'll be able to share more once given an opportunity at a later stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Dua. Very well captured, and especially for our country, the importance of standards cannot be underestimated. Let's bring into the discussion Dr. Ratan once again. Dr. Ratan, but for pregnancy and blood glucose testing, like we've heard for several panelists today, home use diagnostics has not gained much ground in India. What, according to you, could be the constraints and barriers to their use in our country?
Mike.
I guess besides blood glucose, what we need to know, there are many point of care tests available, but instead of point of care test, it should be point of care testing, so that it is done with purpose of giving treatment at once. If a point of care testing is done in a small lab and then the results are transmitted to the doctor, that person, they will be delayed. So if a system is set up where testing and treatment occur simultaneously, then I think there will be more and more acceptance of the testing. There are various standards of the things available, and since it's a price sensitive market, normally whatever is the cheapest gets adapted. That sometimes leads to trouble because of non-reproducibility. But besides that, if testing and treatment occurs simultaneously, I think the usefulness of this, especially reaching the unreached, will be very good.
Very, very relevant observation and suggestions there. Yes, when testing and treatment would go hand in hand, the usability and the benefits of the home use diagnostics test would rise dramatically. Thank you very much, Dr. Ratan. That was really, really interesting. Dr. Sharma needs to leave for the WHO meeting. Dr. Sharma, are you there? Can I have the privilege of asking you a question, or are you already connected to the meeting? I think we'll get back to him later. He's already in the meeting, I believe. So now, to get a perspective on market demand, we would like to bring in Rajesh one more time. Rajesh, according to reports, the global point of care OTC market, which is like the home use test market, is estimated to be more than 13 billion US dollars, growing at a CAGR of 4%. What's your outlook, Rajesh, for the POC OTC market in India in the coming years?
I think in India, situation is becoming much different, and I would like to bring in a similarity between demonetization and COVID. How demonetization actually kick-started the adoption of digital payments. Same way, this COVID pandemic has kick-started the adoption of home use devices. The way these oximeters have become almost everyday household name. Before, nobody used to know what is oximeter, and same is also seen in blood glucose meters as well, because the adaptation rates have increased. In fact, according to a recent Kantar Health study, which was done in almost 300 diabetes patients, almost 30% of those had bought glucometer recently in last 2-3 months, which is very high because the current overall penetration is just 10 to 11%. Whereas here we have seen 30% buying a new glucometer and more than 50% using glucometer in last 3 months. So because of the pandemic situation, of course, there is a lot of scare, and that's why people started using it, but in future also they have said they will continue to use it because they want to be in control of their life. So, and this is one fact. Second is the as per IQVIA report, prognosis report of next 5 years, the industry in India is expected to grow at around 7 to 8%. But if you look at this current situation and also how the socio-economic factors like increasing affordability, increasing government spending on healthcare, because they have also realized that they are absolutely low in terms of spending in the healthcare sector. A lot of pressure is coming on them, and more spends will definitely happen in future. This will lead to a better market access, and I am hopeful that the industry will grow at near to around double digit in near future.
Well, that's very encouraging. Thank you, Rajesh. And it appears that the demand for OTC devices is likely to go rapidly, of course, kickstarted, facilitated, bolstered by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right. Yep.
Thank you. At this stage, let us get some thoughts on design and innovation from Dr. Ravi. Dr. Ravi, as the number of over-the-counter devices grows and potential users will have to learn to use different types of devices, do you think multi-purpose home use devices could be a solution to this? For instance, a device that measures both blood glucose levels and GHbA1c levels so that it provides a comprehensive tool for monitoring of diabetes at home.
Actually, that's a very good question. So if you go back to the market, there is the standalone glucometer, the fastest and highest selling because most affordable. So if you add one more parameter, that it becomes complex and also the cost factor goes up. So if you go back to seeing, there are meters which can connect HbA1c, which has to be tested maybe once in a month or once in 3 months, not beyond that. But glucose is something that could be tested on a daily basis. If you add HbA1c to the same parameter, answer is yes, but the cost of meter might go to maybe 2,000 because the chemistry for HbA1c is slightly different from the electrochemical biosensor of glucose. That's one aspect of it. So the cost goes up, and then they may or may not be willing to actually go and buy a combined meter. So they might just go and cut the corners and just buy the glucometer. There are multiple parameters, meters like for cholesterol, hemoglobin, glucose, all coming together, 3 parameters, maybe like a lipid profile, which has cholesterol, HDL, total cholesterol, and triglyceride. There are a lot of meters available with the multiple parameters. But again, the cost of each test goes to 500 rupees. Like if you want to buy one card, which can measure cholesterol, total cholesterol, and triglyceride, that each card is 500 rupees. Again, it goes back to cost is not affordable, and then no one buys it. There are so many meters available in the market with multiple parameters, but until you bring the cost part to the affordable range when all can access it, then answer is yes. And we are working on that. So in future, next 2 or 3 years, we will find multiple products coming from us, which will be in the same price range, which will be multi-parameter based handheld devices.
That's very encouraging, Dr. Ravi, because the cost factor can only be optimized if we were to develop and manufacture these products locally in India, and which you're doing. So that's a very positive news. Thank you very much. I now come back to you, Dr. Dua. Internationally, which horizontal and vertical standards have been adopted for home use diagnostics tests and devices? Could you please throw some light on this?
Well, as I said in my previous remarks, this is still an evolving arena, and several international organizations as well as BIS is still working on it. Many things are in pipeline, but very few little things have actually conceived. So among the common horizontal standards, we see like 80601, we are using for this sphygmomanometers, for thermometers, as well as even for glucometer 15197 and 13450, as we are using for general medical electrical equipment for general safety of these equipments. So what I mean to say that several things are in pipeline, even in the core group, which we are fortunate to share that you are leading the in vitro diagnostics subgroup in the core group. So we are in the process of developing more than a dozen standards, and in the times to come, we will be seeing these as Indian standards published. And similarly, in ISO and IEC level also, what we see that there are several activities going on hand in hand. But truly speaking, this is still an evolving area, and we look forward to having vertical standards, which especially ensure the safety and quality and reproducibility of the devices that we use in our home. It's of so paramount importance that I, being a clinician, truly speaking, so this is an area which I am learning from all of you. I was just wondering that a patient of IDDM, insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus, when he is admitted in a hospital, the hospital setting uses the glucometer to do the frequent sugar tests and then advises the insulin dose. At the time of discharge, the patient is told, okay, if the sugar level goes to this level, you can titrate the dose and you can report it. Now, just imagine the havoc that can be caused if that same glucometer which the patient is using at home, if it is different from the what was being used in the healthcare organization, and the patient gets a false reading, and due to that false alarm raised, the dose of insulin pushed is higher than required. You can all imagine that hypoglycemic shock, and maybe death can occur just because of one small little thing, that the instrument which was being used didn't comply to the existing standards or was not calibrated properly. So this is the importance of standards, especially when it comes to home use diagnostics. And I think I must admit that this is an area where we all need to join hands to work even more aggressively and even more as a team. And I'm happy to inform the House that as a part of a core group activity in BIS, we do have a subgroup that dedicatedly works on standards related to IVDs. And Madam Veena ji and several other stakeholders, including Dr. Jatendra Sharma ji, is guiding us. Several other industry experts are also a part of this. And I think it's a time when we need to enlist some of the important medical devices, especially for home use diagnostics, for which we need to come up with the standards at an expeditious mode, so that we can offer the best of the services to our patients. So in nutshell, yes, a little bit is done. A lot of it is in the pipeline, and we need to plan for even further. Thank you.
Thank you. I fully agree with you, Dr. Dua. We'll need to really fortify this dedicated group with the people with the right skill sets to accomplish this task. And we can take a leaf from the WHO standards that are available for OTC products and many others to really, provide this kind of information to the Indian manufacturers, people who want to manufacture home use diagnostics, so that they have the standards laid down already and they work as guiding principles for the manufacturers to start developing and designing such tests. Thank you. And our discussion will not be complete without getting a reaction from the regulator on the most recent news on home use diagnostics. We bring in Mr. Aseem Sahu once again. Mr. Sahu, US FDA approved the first coronavirus self-testing kit last week. Is India also ready for the same?
Yeah, ma'am. That is recently that on 17th November, US FDA has approved this home use COVID-19 test kit. As far as India is concerned, we have a lot of challenges with respect to the COVID-19 itself. Though we have discussed earlier that for the low risk, certain kits are available for home use, but high risk so far we have not yet approved any of the diagnostic kit for home use. As far as COVID-19 is concerned, we have discussed a lot about the affordability, accuracy, reliability of the kits. Other than these two important factors, only one issue is the labeling information. We have to also see the labeling information specific with respect to the home use, because for the home use, clearly information should be, as far as India is concerned, we have to very specific to the labeling information for use of the particular kit. Another one is the sampling, how to sample the specimen sample. Drawing up the specimen sample is also one of the important factors. Thereafter, the disposal, waste management, we have to also see the disposal, how that kits are being disposed by the individual who is using the home use kits. So as far as COVID-19 is concerned, it is very, so many concerns are there. And presently only we are relying on the testing which is being done by the government approved lab only. And that is also for the PCR and rapid kits. So home use, it is very early to say what for as far as the India is concerned. And the things which we have to see is the affordability, the price, what the price for the PC, because the price is also monitored by the government. So for such type of kit, whether it is affordable to the common man, because okay, certain population we can allow them, but for the common people with the accurate result, is it truly fulfill the requirement? That is the one of the concerns. So at present, since the kids and the pandemic situation, I don't think that can be immediately see with respect to home use. Only thing for the PCR and whatever the kits are available and approved by the government and for the testing by the ICMR designated labs, we can rely on that at presently. In future, we'll see based on the evidence and for the documents, the regulator will, and also policy is one of another things. If the government policy definitely will see and will review such type of that applications and will consider based on the evidence and the supporting documents submitted by the manufacturers or the importers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sahu. We fully understand the concerns that you've listed. Probably we are not yet ready for a home use diagnostics test for coronavirus testing, and we feel that these tests should preferably be conducted at pathology laboratory or hospitals and clinical laboratories. Very valid observation indeed. Thank you very much. And now, before rounding off the panel discussion, I'd like to get some final comments from Professor Ratan. Dr. Ratan, you are a medical doctor and you've heard viewpoints from various panelists here today. So what do you say? Would home use diagnostics become a new normal in the coming future, at least for routine parameters?
Yes, of course. I think there's great future for home use, and as it was mentioned that people are wearing wearables. So there was a device I remember trying to help them validate, which could do blood pressure, which could take temperature, which could do hemoglobin, which could do glucose, and it had a slot where rapid tests could be used. And I think it was field trialed in J&K, where the A&M will go from house to house, registering persons for registering and identifying high-risk pregnancies, so that home use or use by A&Ms and ASHAs are going to be able to help reach the unreached otherwise. So I think there's great future for these kind of devices.
Thank you very much, Professor Ratan. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that the future of routine diagnostic tests might indeed be at home, although with some caveats and caution. Thank you very much, our wonderful panelists, for all your insights on the future of home use diagnostics. I thank you all for your valuable contributions today. And I would now like to invite Mr. Nikhil Patel, Vice President, ADMI, to take the floor for sharing the top takeaways from today's discussions and for any questions that come up from the audience. Over to you, Nikhil.
So thank you everyone for giving a remarkable contribution to this thought process which has come about because of COVID, the home diagnostic test kits, which were not existent in past except for pregnancy and glucometers. So it has been so with a lot of expert discussion. I think there will be a lot of takeaways that to understand. At present, the situation, like for screening and monitoring diagnostics is useful, but in long run, a lot of regulatory, a lot of affordability in manufacturing of the product will be required. And like how Dr. Jatendra Sharma said, that they have put up a amazing facility, which I personally have been able to see that facility myself during my visit to AMTZ. It was a fantastic development at that point of time, but now it's already been 1.5 years, so I'm sure the entire infrastructure is completed. So a lot of viewers who are here and other manufacturers would actually love to see that so their R&D projects can actually kickstart in this kind of facilities that we've been given to industry. And in future, we definitely look at what contributions can be, come in home diagnostic market for at least a requirement for Indian industry. And apart from just doing like glucose and pregnancy, like how Mr. Ravi Marwa said, in future that multiplexing with one device for many different diseases would be very useful. And so I think industry would look forward to that kind of thinking for going forward. And like how Jatendra Sharma also mentioned that there are 11,000 different diseases in the spectrum, and we are only able to only address a few tests in India. So there is definitely a big a chunk of work to be done in future for betterment of the health of this country. So I would think that like affordability and like preclinical errors which should not be taken care in the market, because a lot of people who are using this device are still not educated in that form. So it's going to be a challenging thing to introduce this kind of products in immediate future. But I think there's still COVID has opened up eyes for industry and for the regulators that a lot of things can be done with the industry and come out with products which can be useful as a POCT or home care use. So I thank all the panelists to give all the relevant ideas and information to our viewers who take away today that there is a good future in seeing this kind of product coming to the market very soon in many aspects of things. And I think regulatory will also look into it more positively, what can be possible, like how other countries and West is looking into this kind of products and work better. So thank you all, the Dr. Pradeep Dua, Dr. Jatendra Sharma, Professor Ashok Ratan, Asim Sahuji, Dr. Ravi Mehrotra, and Mr. Rajesh Jha for attending this panel and giving insight to our viewers of what can be a future for home diagnostic use. So I think we can open up the panel for if any questions are there from the viewers.
Yeah. Nikhil, just sorry for intercepting. I see Dr. Jatendra Sharma back from the meeting. We're very happy to have him here. So I'm very tempted to ask him in just one sentence. Do you think, Dr. Sharma, that home use diagnostics will be the new normal in the coming future? You have to unmute yourself. Yes. Can't hear you, sir. You have to unmute yourself, Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma, we cannot hear you. Could you please unmute yourself, Dr. Sharma? We are not able to hear you.
So you can try to log out and log in once. Like I think there is some technical issue.
Okay. Okay, then maybe you can. Thank you. And Nitin, are there any questions from the audience? Which we
actually, Ankurji, can you just see, because in here I cannot see any on the chat any participant names coming up. Mr. Ankur?
Ankur is muted.
Because on our chat system, I can't see any questions coming up here. Where we can talk to the participants.
He messaged no questions.
Okay, then with that, we round off the panel, and thank you very much for joining in, all our distinguished panelists. It was a great pleasure hosting you. Thank you very much, and hope we meet again at another panel discussion soon. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Fully personally.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Yes. Bye.